This may sound at first like the most impressive argument you'll hear today. And perhaps it is, though, like most impressive things, it doesn't quite survive close inspection without shedding a bit of its shine. Still, I'm offering it up front, not as bait. I respect you too much for that, but as a kind of philosophical amuse-bouche, something to keep your mind pleasantly occupied before your next scroll. Here it is. When someone says evolution by natural selection equals the explanation of species diversity, don't be fooled by the innocent-looking equal sign. It's not your friendly neighbourhood mathematical identity. It's not there for clean substitutions or tidy proofs. It's more like the handshake after a long academic bar fight. An agreement reached only after decades of shouting, misunderstanding, and someone eventually inventing population genetics. Darwin didn't just drop this truth on us like a parcel. It had to be assembled, with parts from Mendel, Dobzhansky, and the sheer intellectual stubbornness of people who believed the natural world could, eventually, make conceptual sense. And not just sense in the casual, everyday way, but in the phenomenological sense, meaning that had to be shaped, structured, and slowly coaxed into the status of experience. Because to even experience something like evolution as an explanation, you don't just look. You have to learn to see. You have to build the architecture, the ideal structures, the eidetic scaffolding, through which a chaos of variation becomes intelligible as a mechanism, and a field of living forms becomes readable as historical divergence. That's not data processing. That's cognitive excavation. So no, the equal sign here isn't a shortcut. It's a monument to how long it took for nature to become readable. In the last few videos, which I do recommend checking out if you haven't already, we explored how Rudolf Carnap tried to stabilize meaning using formal structures. The basic idea was this: if two expressions are intentionally equivalent, then their identity can be reduced to a kind of rule-based formalism. We also see that this exposes him to Quine's critique, because at the level at which a machine or a formal calculus might generate outputs from given inputs, Carnap's empirical intentionalism collapses into extensionalism. The system can no longer tell whether it's handling profound ontological commitments or trivial rephrasings. Let's take a case study. Consider the identity claim. Evolution by natural selection is the explanation of species diversity. At first glance, this might appear to be a definitional or even tautological statement. But if we attempt to treat it as a formal sentence subject to Tarskian truth conditions, that is, as true if and only if evolution by natural selection explains species diversity, we overlook the depth and mediation required for this identity to function meaningfully. Now the argument has been made, the curtain rises. Let us watch the actors and the performance unfold across the theatre of conceptual oppositions. The phrase, evolution by natural selection, is not a bare proposition. It enters the stage with baggage. It encodes a mechanism of variation, inheritance, and differential fitness. It brings a temporal backdrop of gradualism, and it insists on a population-level ontology where statistical tendencies outweigh individual destinies. More provocatively, it enters dressed in conflict. It refuses the garments of creationism, of essentialism, of cosmic design. It insists on its own worldview. Now for the doubts, the rich and supposedly illuminating ones I'll leave you with today, just before I slip back into my phenomenological inclinations. And no, I won't try to sell them to you. In formal semantics, we assign truth values to propositions by interpreting them within a model. Clean, elegant. But then we ask, What's the model for evolution? What exactly is its domain? Where do we even define its functions? And that's when the elegance falters, because the truth is, there is no single model, no neat structure waiting in the wings. What we have instead is a superstructure, a scaffolding not built from symbols, but from historical reinterpretations. Long before the discovery of DNA, Darwin introduced a framework that would undergo constant revision. Biology became increasingly statistical, transforming methods and expectations. Fixed species gave way to fluid gene pools defined by probabilities. Even terms like fitness became contentious, debated, defended, and strategically redefined with each generation of scientists. So before we plug evolution into a formal system, maybe we ought to ask, are we modelling a theory, or are we modelling the sediment of a century's worth of conceptual struggle? And it's precisely here, in this thick, layered terrain, that a certain kind of phenomenology quietly claims its space.
Now, you'll notice, I could have left phenomenology out of this. I could have played the cold analyst, reduced it all to logic and linguistic tinkering. But I won't. Not because I'm trying to rescue phenomenology from the margins, but because I believe it gives us something no other framework does. Something essential to this reflection. It's because phenomenology exists that we can even speak of the identity claim above, that evolution equals the explanation of diversity as something constructed, something layered through human acts of idealization. It's because of phenomenology that we can trace the point where Dasein, that slippery, always situated human being, found its funnel of disclosure, where it worked, not randomly, but deliberately, through the difference between essence and fact, between eidos and event, between imagination and execution, all within the fragile boundaries of a mind still healthy enough to idealize without hallucinating. That kind of mental health isn't just scientific. It doesn't arrive merely with Kuhnian peace, the quiet after the paradigm war, when one theory finally outvotes the rest. No, this is a deeper peace, a kind of ontological ceasefire, a moment when the projected world, the imagined world, the socially stabilized world, finds temporary harmony, when common sense, in all its ideological infrastructure, quietly does the heavy lifting beneath our so-called clear and rational judgments. So, dear listener, the next time you're tempted to treat the propositions that structure your day as obvious, self-evident, or semantically clean, pause and consider the messy calm behind the consensus.